Here we are for the 2000 Union, September the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Many people in here right now. It's the first day. And there's part of the displays that we have.
Just keep taking and we can move, do anything else.
Here at George Field for the 7th.
Yes, sir.
Now it says record. Now push it again, it pauses.
Grateful to see everybody out tonight. We might run into rain, but that's all right. The hangar's not too far away. We're going to start our flag lowering ceremony off with our opening prayer by Pastor C. Lamar Brown of the Wesleyan Church in Lawrenceville.
Let us pray together. We thank you, Lord, for this occasion that brings us together to remember and to celebrate and to salute those who have served and who have served us well. We thank you for the freedom that they have fought with their efforts and the efforts of others like them. And we pray that this will be a great day and a great time of remembering and celebrating and singing and laying a wreath and all. We ask that you would sanction and bless and make this a great and joyous and happy time. We love you. We know you love us. Thank God for America and for the freedom that we have. Amen.
Memorabilia. I've lost my speech. So I'm not going to say anything, only to say that I'm so proud and so happy that we have found all of you and you have decided to join us. We will be going to the hangar soon after the taps is played and pick up balloons, and then we're going to come and have a balloon release here. And connected to the balloons is a little piece of paper that we had put on, hoping that somebody will find some of these and contact us. I said on the little piece of paper, George Field Celebration, Lawrenceville, Illinois, September of 2000. And I said, if you enjoy your freedom, tell them. Then underneath that story, or that sentence, whatever I'm supposed to say here, will be your name and address. So if you get something through the mail from somebody that has found your balloon, please let us know. Okay. Thank you, Ray.
What if somebody punctured my balloon?
You're in trouble. This guy's the comedian of the crowd, and he's going to be the auctioneer tonight, so you better watch out for him. All right, at this point in time, we're going to have Ray Miller and Bill Blocker, class 43D, to lay our wreath.
43K.
Oh, 43K. Sorry, sir. See how they get me all upset?
Where the hell Billy go?
Standing there waiting on you.
There he is. Good to go, Bill.
There's so much up here, it takes longer for it to cycle. Ready? time, I will turn the mic over to John Kennedy, Class 44A, and John has something for you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right? Good, thank you. I have a little poem here called Just a Piece of Cloth. I was with Colonel Parker and the Minutemen at Lexington to hear the shot that heard around the world that began the American Revolution. I was with General Washington as he crossed the Delaware and suffered with his men in the harsh winter at Valley Forge. Did they fight and die just for a piece of cloth? I was with Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys at Ticonderoga. Washington, Hancock, and Marcus D. Lafayette to help surrender terms that were found with the British flag and old world turned upside down. Did they fight and die just for a piece of cloth? I was with Andy Jackson, King of the People, at the Battle of New Orleans in 1812. I was with Bowie, Crockett, and Travis at the Alamo. Did they fight and die just for a piece of cloth? I was with Lee and Longstreet, all the boys at Gettysburg. I was with all the boys in blue with General Meade, Colonel Chapman, and Little Roundup. I was with Grant and Williams. I was with both Blue and Gray in our company and Appomattox. Did they fight and die just for a piece of cloth? I was with Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders at San Juan Hill, and with Admiral Dewey and the Great White Chief at Old Bay. I was with the Doughboys in Maryland, and Ward in England, and I now lie buried in the land. Did they fight and die just for a piece of cloth? I was with Admiral Malcolm Hill, where he was under that Patriot in 1939. I was with the infantry that landed so far away in Did they fight and die over a piece of cloth? Who's getting best? I was with General Wainwright and his brigadier. I was with Admiral Fletcher in the Battle of the Tennessee. I was aboard the Yorktown, Enterprise, and Hornet. Did they fight and die just for a piece of cloth? I was at Kwajalein, the Battle of Lady Gulf, Bloody Charles, Guadalcanal, and Iwo Jima, and served on destroyers on picket duty off Okinawa. Did they fight and die just for a piece of cloth? I flew saber jets in Lee Galley in North Korea and was with the Marines at Chosin Reservoir. I was with the Navy at Incheon Harbor called Honduras and ridges called Bloody Beach. Did they fight and die just for a piece of cloth? I flew bombing missions over from Europe and was on wreck patrol in the Mekong Gulf. I was with the Navy on Yankee Station in Tonkin Gulf. I flew night missions over Baghdad with the battalions in the Desert Storm. Did they fight and die just for a piece of cloth? Freedom is not free. It has a price. And it has been paid many times for many people, by many people. And I am an American and I am free. This was done in reference to the flag.
From 43D, Tom Hughes is up in the airplane and going to give us a flyby just in a few minutes. Crawford is ex-POW, and he's here to read a little thing for you about POW.
Can you hear me?
No.
Is that better? That's better, okay. I did not author all of these words, although I would certainly like to adopt them as if I had, because I think they're pretty important. This is your flag. Yes, you recognize the stars and stripes, but is it saying something to you?
You have to hold it up to your mouth.
Doing something for you? Are you angered when you see it defiled or ridiculed? Does your heart beat faster? Your eyes glisten with tears when you behold it unfurled in the breeze? Or is patriotism something like religion? You don't know if you've got it until you need it. I was once a young American too, and no more or less patriotic than you. I pledged allegiance to the flag, and I sang the Star-Spangled Banner as best I could, until Hitler raised a heavy hand and smashed his fist into the heart of Europe, until Japan directed a savage attack on our shores. Then I was catapulted into a wartime world I could never have imagined. I became soldier, sailor, airman, marine. My brother, my buddy, and I followed our flag as it filled against the gray of sky and sea and battleship. We saw the colors ground into the sand of North America, shredded on the coral of Corregidor, bloodied on Omaha Beach. My brother raised that flag on Iwo Jima. My buddy cried when he sighted the flag flying over his England air base as he and too few of his comrades returned from the Schweinfurt raid. A brother kept his eyes on a tattered flag from battle to battle until the battles were no more. And for a buddy, it was the last blanket to cover his body before he was buried in foreign soil or slipped into a watery grave. And I watched the flag until it was no longer there to watch. I parachuted from a flaming plane over Germany, surrendered to an overpowering army on Bataan. I was marched along at bayonet point. I was transported like an animal to a stall log or to a jungle camp. Guarded, taunted, barricaded. I was a prisoner of war. For days, months, and year after endless year, I existed under a flag that boasted either a rising sun or the Nazi swastika. What my captors failed to realize is that although they shaved my head, starved my body, deprived my soul, and denied me basic human rights, an American flag fluttered on in my heart. Pride in what the red, white, blue stand for buoyed my spirit. God watched over me. My compatriots sustained me, and I survived. Can you understand what a blessed, beautiful sight that flag was to me? When I viewed it last in New York, in San Francisco, while that flag waved to me from sea to shining sea, beckoning me back to my farm, my shop, my career, my family, that flag cried out to me, look, I am flying still. I always will. I did look. I wept. I thanked the Lord for returning me home to this good land. And now, friends, will you do something for me? Take another look. A good hard look at that flag. And never forget what it stands for. You know, exactly 2 years to the day after I graduated from this field right here, General George Patton released us from prison camp over in Germany. And I tell you, when I saw the flag, I cried. Thank you.
singer. They're going to sing God Bless America for us, and I'm sure you will enjoy it.
I just want to thank Allie for asking us to do this. And I hope you do. God bless America, land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountain to the prairie, to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountain to the prairie, to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountain to the prairie, to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Let us bow in prayer again, please. We do ask your blessings on America, O Lord, and on our lives. And we ask that you would bless us as we go in the activities that continue in the afternoon and evening. And we pray that you would help us to have a great time together. Bless these who have come and give them a great time of happiness and joy as they share together stories of the past and new ones that have happened in their lives in recent days. In your name we ask. Amen.
Bravo.
That was fun.
Did you follow yours?
I got hers. I got a 0 right in the middle of the camera.
Hey, Billy Blocker. Hey, Billy. Looks like a formation of B-24.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I see him in that V formation.
You're going to have to sit in on our attitude adjustment class.
Can you still see them?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got it on 15 magnification, so I can see them fine.
Picture in there, G-17 flight, and they signed it in gold ring. What's about it?
And I was also in the Indiana National Guard, so I do have a little bit of military background. And he introduced me as Terry, not Jerry. I've got a twin brother. That's always a big battle. Most people introduce me as Jerry, and he's the sheriff of Knox County. And we fought that all of our lives. It's really a pleasure to welcome you all here. As a veteran, I'm intimidated by veterans groups. All my life, I grew up around veterans. I'm a member of the Vincennes YMCA, and all around me in the locker room area in the health club is guys your ages are all veterans, Korean War, World War II, Normandy, and I listen to those guys tell those stories, and it's so interesting, and it's so intimidating when I get up in front of these groups, because I feel like we owe you so much. You've paid such a price, and it wasn't very long ago that I flew into Washington, D.C., and as you go into D.C. and make your final approach, you look out to the right, and there's Arlington Cemetery, and you look over to the left, and there's all of our monuments, the White House, and all that, and it puts in perspective to me the price that was paid for our freedom and how much we owe you all. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate that, and that's been one of the real perks of my job, is the opportunity to say thanks to all of you. And I truly mean that. And it's really great to welcome you here and sitting out there with you and to listen to you tell your stories. Now, I'm a big History Channel watcher. I don't know if very many of you watch the History Channel, but I watch that, and I used to ask our guys at the Y, I said, do you ever see yourselves on there? Do any of you ever see yourselves on any of those stories, those shows? I just wonder, I've never, well, we've got one. But it's a pleasure to have you here. The airport still serves a great purpose, as you all know. Vincennes University trains their students here, still training pilots. We've got some big plans over Vincennes with the railroad, and one of the things we're hoping to do is to put a railroad spur back into this area, which we think may help us with our industry here. We've got a lot to do. We worked hard, and I'm a new mayor, only 8 months in, so a lot of things we'd like to do, and a lot of it hinges around this airport. And it's been a pleasure, of course, to work with Mayor Kiyonka there. We both, I think, have the same goals. We want to see this area grow. And once again, I appreciate you letting me be a part of your festivities this evening, and hope maybe to see you tomorrow night. Thank you very much. My chief of staff, I had him prepare this for me this afternoon, and he did an hour overtime to do this, and I don't read it. I just wander it off, and we'll talk it.
It's always a pleasure to be here and to spend a little time with you. But first, I'd like to introduce my wife, Maggie, who is here sitting in the back of the room. Stand up, honey, so I can see you. Don't tell her she's more than Frank's on the board from the Illinois side. Frank, let these people see you again. Come on. And the gentleman that really runs this place, Kurt Schwartz, your airport manager. Kurt? Something, no matter how small it may be. For example, Kurt's helped us get a pickup truck that still serves its needs. Kurt, we're still using it. Or if the airport needs a fire hydrant or something like that, or piping, we work well together. It's a trade-off basis. And that's what you guys are all about. You worked here. You gave your lives and part of it here. You gave your remembrances here. And as the mayor of Lawrenceville would like to do also, as I'm just standing here for a few minutes because you're stuck with me tomorrow night, I'd like to invite you to come see our city. I hope you'll find us pleasantly. There's some improvements. We do a lot of painting, a lot of cleaning up, and we try to make sure it's the type of city that you or each of us want to live in, retire in,
raise our family, and do whatever part of life, that journey of life that each of us in, that each of you would like to be part of that journey in Lawrenceville. And I know Terry feels the same way about Vincent's. But while you're here, I'd like you to come see our town and see what you think about the changes. Allie gave me that 50th anniversary book, and as I paged through it, and all those faces and pictures on it, it's remembrance. It's, as Terry says so well, it's part of paying the price for freedom. I served in the United States Army from I was in Korea from 62 to 64, which was not combat time, but at that time they'd do some forays, as you probably read, over the DMZ and shoot 4 or 5 GIs a year and vice versa. It was different. Vietnam was just starting. We were support units of Vietnam at that time. But the difficulty of what each of you must have faced is insurmountable. I can't imagine, I'm sure Terry can't either. As you were young and growing up and out here on the plains of Illinois and spending times in the city of Vincennes. And that is the beauty of this airport. It is a joint project. It must be a joint project. The magnitude of this airport and of the history that each of you, ladies and gentlemen, gave this area demands it. And the remembrance demands it. And there's one person I know that I want to recognize before I go much further because of what he just said. The history in this place demands recognition and remembrance, and that's a lady named Allie Deloria. Stand up, Allie. If you ask Allie to pull that plow anytime, Allie says yes. Whatever it is in the city of Lawrenceville, I've come to Allie and her son numerous times to ask for help with little projects. Or, for example, we recently had the Vietnam Wall in Lawrenceville. And we did a little differently. We had each night for all veterans. One night we utilized the services of World War II vets, another night Korean vets. We made sure countywide it was for everybody. And Allie helped me as she looked through names, because I wanted, the last night, I wanted to read out some names of local veterans that had served here at that time. So Allie was a dear and spent a lot of time giving me that information, all the other work she did. But I won't ramble on. There's some very nice music. You're stuck with me tomorrow night, and they said, don't use your speech up tonight, so I won't. I'm like Tarek. This is off the cuff, from the heart, and I appreciate each of you guys coming here. And you are part of the proud history of this country. Thank you very much.
Are you, Crawford?
I'm here.
You ready? Are you through eating?
I've had a lot of experience, you know that.
That's all right. You did a fantastic job down at the bike race. It was an orange ceremony.
No.
And we both shed tears at the same time.
My experience amounts to this airfield when she told me I was going to do this.
I told you last time. No, I've already got one of them.
You ain't going to retire.
You're not going to retire.
Heck, no, man. Okay.
I retired when I broke a hip for 1 year.
So it really, this, I've not done this before, so if you'll bear with me.
Betty, you want to keep track? I'll holler who got the item. We don't expect big bucks out of you guys. But you just don't know how good these antiques are. Okay, what do you want to do first, sir?
I think I'm going to do, these are pictures, Tom, and you don't need this, am I correct?
Yes. They're painted. They are drawings from Gil Ortega from California. He was a veteran, and he got into drawing pictures and what have you, and I found him in court. Alan McCord.
Okay, here's a, I don't know what this is. I've seen it before. I don't really remember what it is.
That's the box the B-17 came in.
Okay, there's a B-24. It doesn't have its distinction on the tail as to what division was in, but that's one of those things. But what do we, how about $5 for this one?
$5.
There's $5. You'll make it 5.5. Somebody would do B-24. Tom, you want one for 5.5 or you have one? How about 5.5? Here's 5.5 over here. Anybody for $6? You got a $6 going over here. How about you need more? 6.5. 6.5. 6.5. 7. You got a $7 bet. How about 7.5? 7.5. Who wanted for? Were you wiping your brow out mirror, or did you bid 7.5? I saw you wiping your brow. 8. 8. Okay. Anybody for 8.5? 8.5 over here. Anybody for 8 and for $9? $9. Who's going for $9? Who's going for $9? 8.5 over here. This beautiful lady.
Good. Write it down.
Which lady got it? That one.
I thought she'd buy 17, not a 24.
Okay, okay. This is a very hysterical airplane. Okay, how about starting out at $6? Anybody for $6? Here's $6 over here. How about 6.5? Somebody's gonna put, somebody needs this for 6.5. Somebody for 6.5. 6.5, somebody? 6.5 once, 6.5 twice. $7. $7.50 over here. Okay, how about $8? $8. $8. You're bidding against yourself. Okay, we got 7.5. 7.5. Okay, 7.5. Okay.
This is a picture I sent Gil Ortega, copies of things, and he drew this and put it all together for me. This was C-47's towing the glider. This is your AT-10. This is a picture that I got off a postcard that was made during World War II for George Field. And this is who the field is named after, General George.
General
Harold
George. Okay, this I think is a beautiful picture. Okay, how about this for $10? We have $10 bid. How about 10.5? $15. We got $15. How about 16? Who'll do 16? $16. Here's $16, Mayor. Thank you, sir. Who's got 17? 17. Here's 17 over here. Who'll do the 18? 18. 18. Here's. Are you scratching your face or bidding? Okay, do it 17. We're looking for 18. $18. How about 17.5? No. Sir, $18. We got $18 right over here. 18.5. 18.5. Anybody else? $19. Anybody for $19? Mr. Mayor, $19. Thank you, sir. 19.5. Here's 20, 19.5 over here. Excuse me, I jumped the gun. Here's 19.5. Mr. Mayor, how about $20? It's nothing but money.
She's a nice lady.
She is that. She is very nice. Here's $20 over here. He's got the bill. 21. Here's 21.5. Anybody? Anything? How about 22? 22? 21.5. Thanks to the pretty lady. Probably the United States Air Force.
There was another gentleman, he isn't here tonight, that brought this from Florida.
That doesn't absolve you of liability. Okay, it's really a modified computer, and it looks like it's real good. I think it's very useful.
What did you all use it for?
I use these 6 feet to figure out where I'm going and how fast I'm getting there and this kind of thing. But I use these 6 feet instead. How about $5? Who'll do starting off with $5?
That would be collector's item, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. $5. It's a computer. It's not an electronic computer. It's a manual computer. It's on the same basis as the engineers use the slide rule. Yes, sir. Use the slide rule, which I never could learn.
You want it, Jack?
No.
This is a mechanical computer.
No, honey, I haven't.
Very effective.
Worked out fuel consumption on it.
Yes, sir. Okay, there you are. Fuel consumption, direction, wind drift, all sorts of goodies like that. Who'll go $5 for it? Anybody for $5?
Nobody votes?
He probably wants to frame it, he frames everything he buys. If you go to our store and look on the wall, well, you see some neat stuff.
All right, well, I'll let you all fight about that later.
Who's got it?
Well, so far you have none.
Not me. He's got $5. I don't want it.
Well, 5.5. Anybody for 5.5? $6. No, 5.5 is 5.5 is the bid at this point. 5.5. You go 6. Mom said 6. Okay. You've been had, you know that. Mom said 6. Okay, who goes 6.5? Anybody for 6.5? Here's 6.5. 6.5. Who goes 7? Anybody for 7? You will.
I will go 7.
You will go 7. It's 7. Who goes 7.5? No. 7.5. Anybody? Once? Twice? Okay, 7.5. Down in Georgia, they call them pecans. But anyway, that's unimportant. There appear to be, I'd say 2 pounds of shelled pecans. They're good, very good. I'm guessing 2 pounds here. Okay, can it go for $3? Let's say it's $1.50 a pound. How about starting $3? Here's $3. What do you say, sir? 3.5? 3.5, who'll go for $4? Anybody for 4.5? 4.5, 4.5, 4.5. Anybody for $5? $5. Anybody for 5.5? 5.5, $5 to the general. Thank you. You got it, Alex?
Randall.
What I'm gonna do is send you a couple of pounds of peanuts. Each gallon has got the batter.
We have here a tissue holder,
Hard as hell to tell.
facial tissue holder, and it's and they're excellent without question. $7 for the flat, 7.5. Who'll do the 7.5? We have it for a good cause. 7.5, 7.5. Okay, one for $7. 7 twice, $7 to the lady. Can you do 11? You'll do 11. 11.5. Anybody for 11.5?
Here you go. I've got a good friend I'll give that to, Roscoe Cunningham. He'll enjoy that.
Thank you very much.
Here, like, I'll give it to Roscoe.
I wrote you in what about you, did I get that? Did I get paper back for $85? Then more hardback. He done. He liked to gamble.
Yeah, her kids.
I guess we went to go to my own menu for the bomb.
Here's the dad.
Well, a lot of times, boys are named after their fathers. We got my two dads, and one of them dads is going to be a key back.
I was born in here. So we got over and I see what they done to him. I see how they murder people like this. You want to shoot back. Either you bet. You bet.
They never get everything out.
I let all those somebody lay across my bed watching football, and then her pad, get my food ready for the night.
You're gonna take the trailer up and do it back?
It should be.
Hey, Dorothy.
Graham is quarterback, and they got $4.
Then when they found out what the whole thing.
But then it's Cordell Scott. He's worse than Mark Malone when Malone was quarterback. He was either too high or too low. You know, those guys get the pass, they couldn't just line up, but they couldn't take it around to get the passes up. And well, they got an open week this week, so I'm gonna bet they don't lose this one.
They're gonna win.
I'll be in the picture.
Say something.
Adam, I want a hug. She's taking pictures. Come on, guys. There they go. Hey, look around the camera, guys. She's taking pictures. New York? Miller, wave.
They're so busy talking.
The children will find you.
I'm afraid that.
Joe?
And that piece of cowling that was removed by the airplane. That wasn't all there. And it fastened it down tight. So I
my seat down, and he did too. Later on that day, I apologize to you. He said, I'm sure as hell you were fuzzy when you lost that piece of
All the games, some of them sitting around talking.
Penny was 476. Santa Claus can bring it to you. That's wrong. Get jumped out on.
The young man.
You're a real pal. You know what? You're not going.
A variety of experiences.
I enjoyed Vietnam. A lot of their they had a nuclear war.
I never did that. Remember, wings over here, wings over there too. Jump wings and then.
But the Alamo Park, actually granted.
For a banquet tonight. We're here at the Holiday Inn. We're going to sit around the table. Louder, Jack.
Well, as soon as they all quit talking, they'll probably be able to hear them.
Now we can.
Hey, I just want to welcome you here tonight, all you members and wives of the Georgetown reunion of 2000. This is our 9th reunion, and we're opening ceremony tonight by asking you to stand and we'll do a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I have a very short poem here, and it's from the National Flag Celebration. And I just wanted to read it. I hope you can hear it without a microphone tonight. It's called Dignity and Love. Once upon a time, I was the beginning you anxiously awaited. Now I can pass you by in a parade, and you are too busy to notice me, waiting for the floats and the bands to start. Once you loved me so, you pledged your life to me, said you would even die for me. Used to be you were very proud of me. You treated me respectfully, no scoff or scorn was shown. You even gave me my own special day, so I could see your love for me on display. That seems so long ago. Now I feel disgraced. I have been spit upon, set on fire, tattered and torn, bullet holes in blood, going places I wasn't wanted. But worst of all, being thrown into a heap across the countertop, washed with soap and water, dried in a dryer, hung on as a window shade, even sat upon these things and more. Make me question your love for me after caring for you all these years. I could cry. There would be a torrent of tears. Is it too much to ask that some of my dignity be restored? Tell others I stand for freedom and the rights of all. Of my love for you. Teach your children to cherish me and hold me dear. For sometimes I fear I might some day disappear, to be remembered as if to make believe, to seem only as someone's dream. I need your love always, not just special time, to keep my stars shining, my stripes glowing, my red so bright, my white so shimmering, my blues so brilliant. I need to know you still love me. A little bow of your head, your hand upon your heart. The person next to you will see. You do still care for me. Standing up might be too great. It just might be easier to see you as I wait. And it's about the pride as you understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the blessings of life. We thank you for the opportunity to be together, to worship Thee, and to have partake of that food, blessed fruits and summer juice and guided breakfast, and give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Well, then, why don't we start with the back tables and have them come.
Tonight, and we're really happy to have you, and I'm honest, I was impressed with your remarks. I think they were great. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. What part of Mississippi are you from?
Olive Branch, which is right out of Memphis.
We went through there just a few weeks ago. Mississippi is a beautiful state. We drove down to Natchez and then through that part, and then back up to Louisiana. And I always thought I might retired a little bit.
It's a peaceful back.
It is. That's all remember this. That's the alligator in this thing. It says 50th anniversary souvenir edition. And it says, what's snafu stand for? Situation, all filed up. And as I looked through this book again, I lay on the couch, watched Nebraska finally beat Notre Dame. a heck of a ball game. But I thought of this, and the things I thought of were some of the things last night. First of all, each of you know, my name is Henry Kiyonka. I'm the mayor of Lawrenceville. I retired back in '96 after 30 years in the Illinois State Police. Served sometime 3 years in the Army prior to that. Eventually received a bachelor's degree from Indiana State University, a master's degree from Eastern Illinois University, taught for the state police and a number of other varied duties. When I first retired, I took the work ethic that my parents gave me, such as the same work ethic each of you have, from listening and visiting with you, and I was kind of scared to death for a day. One day I retired because I went to Springfield and I found out I was working for about $100 a month. I said, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? And my wife, she was a little worried. She said, won't you miss it, won't you miss it? And I said, no, I'll just miss having a car to drive for coffee. Other than that, I won't miss it at all. But then the next day I went to work for the same day for the Lawrence County Health Department as a mental health therapist. I was a token male, so to speak. And at the same time I was on the city council in Lawrenceville, and I ran for mayor and against a very good man who wasn't a mayor for a lot of years. The good people decided it was time for a change, and they've elected me, and that was 3 years ago. I'm running again in April if the people of Lawrenceville will have me. But the importance of this is, and looking at this, it's all history, your history. And I made these notes, and I put, these are, Maggie says, what is that? It's chicken scratch. These are my speeches. I write some big words and some little words, and I wrote down remembrance, role models, and discipline. And the purpose of this is, and it's really the purpose of life, is remembrance. And what I'd like to do, and the reason I brought this along, other than to stand it up and wave at it, and also, but this beautiful thing here, with Joe and Dorothy Swatek and Frank, they were here, and Charlie, I think, when we had the big flood in '43. And they were married at the chapel, they told me. I mean, that to me was just exciting. And you were here looking over that. But before I go one step forward, further, I'd like to introduce my lovely bride, Maggie. Would you stand up and mark because she'll swat me. And there are some people, Frank Buttermore, he's one of you, but he's also a member of the Bi-State Authority, which runs the, George Field runs the airport. We're thrilled to have him give all his years of service. So I'd like you to give him again a hand as you did last night. We have some local people tonight, Mr. Ed Jenner in the back of the room, who I love dearly. He's the Christie Township Supervisor. Is that right, Ed? He's been there forever, very good politician, good man. The charming lady to his right, I won't embarrass her, Dorothy Hart, lives down the street from me, spent some time on the school board, gave years of service to our community. Dorothy, I'd like to recognize Dorothy. And of course, last each of you, from speaking to you, have served in a service capacity in your various communities. But Linda Kissel is our Lawrence County Supervisor of Assessments. Linda, and she worked on the last two paragraphs saying, I'd like to just read this to you. Like Ed Gilhooly, who wrote for SNAP, it says, from Lawrenceville to Tokyo, from Vincennes to Berlin, many young soldiers at George Field learned a great deal about death before they knew too much about life. In the well-crafted words of September song, the days dwindle down to a precious few. Let us remember our George Field comrades in our thoughts today and in our prayers tomorrow. And I think that all of this, and that's what really this is about. That's what last night was about with this. That's what Allie's about. And that's what these reunions are. And that's what remembrance is. And it almost brings tears to your eyes because your generation is a generation that brought us respect. Your generation is a generation that gave us pride. And your generation is a generation, which my parents were from, that gave us a work ethic. When I look back and I think Mom and Dad always worked different jobs, lots of jobs, they taught me to say, ma'am, sir, thank you, and no thank you, but be always polite. And that's the part which kind of digresses a little bit. I also wrote down our generation now, and shouldn't be negative, is the I me generation. You know, it scares me. We've gone from a service generation to working for each other and helping each other to an instant gratification, an I me generation. And that worries me to that extent. But your generation, and these are just little notes, you gave us so much. And that's why you must, and I also wrote here little things, you must keep this going. You must keep this going. Allie must keep this going. It's for the remembrance, and you are truly our role models. We recently, as I mentioned, maybe to some of you briefly, had the Vietnam Moving Wall exhibit in Lawrenceville, our city park. It's the first time it ever came to our county. The county worked together to bring it here. We were very proud of it. But we used a different format. We made it the exhibit for all our veterans in the county of all wars. In fact, one of the most interesting things that maybe has nothing to do with you, but I'm sure will interest you. About a week and a half before the exhibit was to take place, and the speakers lined up, this nice lady called me from north of town. Her husband was in World War I. He blew a bugle to General Blackjack Pershing in World War I. When Frank was there, she still had that bugle. So she said, is there any way that you can find somebody that will blow that bugle? If you can do that, I know he's looking down from heaven. It would mean so much to you. Well, we found a young man, Andy Crawford, a tremendous musician, and that, the opening ceremony, and blew that bugle about this, it's real, in the fourth. Blew one chord of taps beautifully on that. There was a dry eye there, there's several hundred people. But that's what this is about, it's remembrance, whether we call it the movie wall, or George Field, it's remembrance in this case specifically to the price that each of you have. And that's what we said, my comments last night. With role models, the Colonel Swearens was one of our closing speakers. He was a Marine Corps Colonel who flew slightly less than 900 missions in Vietnam. And he spoke about this, and I still remember that. And that's why I made some notes, role models. And that's what he talked about. He said he started out, and I remember now, I forgot about that. We started out with our parents to agree as role models. We remember their work ethic. And that's what each of you are now. Each of you, listening to Charlie Lasky over there, well, he served 50 years in town council, he's been a fire chief, he's done it all. I mean, that's embarrassing. And Ruth and everybody at these various tables, and I thought, you know, introducing local people, but each of you deserve the respect. And I know Robert and Judy Smith, they're very dear people. All of you deserve the respect and remembrance of our various communities and our young people. And if you don't publicize, and if we don't have these things, and if we don't remind people what you did and the price you paid, our people will not know that. That's why it's imperative that you continue to do this, because you are role models. I remember my parents were mother, like I said, father, they're both deceased now. They worked hard. They taught me that. We were taught that to get ahead, you have an education, and you work hard. And that's what you people have always done. You've contributed that to this society, whether this society remembers or not. It's important that you or myself or Allie and everyone in this room, and outside of this room, remembers what took place at George Field, remembers the role models and the sacrifices you gave. There were good times there, though, also, weren't there? I wasn't there, but I was just sitting. What this does causes me to reminisce. When I was in Korea, and it's all right, and I had breakfast one morning, and the cook brought some eggs and pieces of meat. And I had a few bites, and what kind of meat is this? And the cook says, keikogi. And I knew what keikogi was. That's dog. And the only thing I could picture some poodle, you know. I just went through a poodle for breakfast. So I know each of you, probably through your various travels, whether you were in Guam or whether in Europe or the Philippines, or Frank did a lot of, from Vietnam to a lot of places, you know, you have little thoughts like that. Maybe it wasn't all. There were some. At the time, I didn't think it was funny, because I remember the huge rats running over the building. I thought, why didn't they cook them? They're bigger than they're no dogs or cats. But I remember my role models were people I wrote down, like Joe Gossman. He was my wrestling coach at Evansville Modern Day. And he used to run us to death. But he taught us that if you want to be successful, there's a price to pay. And that doesn't mean necessarily win all your matches. That means respect yourself more, respect everyone around you. And he taught us that. I was one of the biggest wrestlers back in high school, and this is in Evansville. So they had, Modern Day was a heck of a program. They had like in fact, the last 4 years they've been state champions in Indiana. Not when I was there. But they bring down, I wrestled against a guy named Jim LaRock. You've never heard of it. Channel 7 used to have wrestling. And he was an NCAA champion. So I was the so-called guinea pig. Jim LaRock had come down, this is back in 59, 60. He put me through these holes and almost killed me because those were college holes that Joe Gospel would bring as ahead of his time into high school level. But he was a role model and a work ethic for us. In the military, I remember at Fort Knox, Kentucky, I wrote that down. Who doesn't remember your drill sergeant or someone out there that really was on you, right? Remember those days? And I remember this guy. Lieutenant, can you believe this? Lieutenant Jackie D. Parker. Never forgot his name. The second lieutenant was in charge of our company. Oh my, he was meaner, he was from Texas. He started out with, "I hate all Yankees." That was his whole speech. That's where I heard it. Oh man, I'm a deep doo-doo here. But we lived through it. We worked hard, we ran harder, and I came out as a squad leader or whatever it was, you know. But I remember that man's name is why I wrote that down. And even in Korea I wrote down, I remember the Mama Sans, for those of you overseas, that work hard to make a living. That wash clothes and do whatever it took to raise their families. And that was a work ethic. You look at those people and they survive, they work hard. And I do worry about our future generation from that standpoint. From the I-Me concept, and I don't know how to turn it around. One way we can turn it around is you people must continue to do this. You must continue to remind people. Allie has to continue to do this. And the people in the room have to go back and remind people. And it's so easy to forget. We have television, we have 40, 50 channels, we have video, we have movies, but it's so easy to forget to not take a few minutes of time to reminisce. And this is a heck of a book. The history that you guys and you ladies gave to this country and to this state and to the city of Lawrenceville and Vincennes is just overwhelming. You helped create it. Frank helps keep it going with head service on the bi-state and the rest of the bi-state. I'd like to say just a couple things in closing. First of all, I appreciate you allowing me to come and speak before you. It's an honor to me, more than you realize. It's very much an honor. Each of you in this room, I'm in awe of you because each of you have given so many years of service to your country, to your various communities, and to God. And that's really what life's about. It's really about that. It's really about discipline. It's about remembrance and thinking of ourselves. And sometimes I fail. I'm working at remembering ourselves, and we are role models. We are for our young people. We must continue to work at that. You have been one for me. My parents were a role model for me with the work ethic, the discipline and skills. Didn't always like the discipline in certain ways. And who can remember those days you got to clean your plate or you stay forever, you know? Little kids that were in Asia are starving or something. I forgot that. Remember, like, little kids in Asia are starving. You ever hear that? I thought, well, send it to them. I don't want to stuff. But in closing, I'm going to say this thing. I wrote this down because when I wrote it, it gave me great joy. My mother and father are very proud that I'm able to stand before you. They're very proud that I'm able to stand before a group such as this. And I just speak briefly before you and say thank you for your service again to God and our country. Thank you.
To you, your remarks, what we really don't need the present generation to remember what we did individually so much as we need them to remember the importance of World War II. We became the most powerful nation in the world politically, financially, militarily, in every respect. And because of that, the kids today have boom boxes, they have computers in their rooms, and women made a major step forward. But thank you so much. That's good.
Thank you, sir.
Who is in very bad health, his wife Jo. They've been to every George Field reunion, and this is the first one they missed. So made the effort card here, and I'd like to pass it around and ask all of you to sign it if you will, and I'll get 2 cards. Matter of fact, my wife had me make really a good card on the computer before I left home. So Paul, get you all to sign it. It's still at home, right where I left it. So if y'all will pass it around and pass it back to this table, that table, and all the way around the room, just sign it inside. There's 3 pages back there to sign.
We have some for Mom and one for Nikki.
Oh,
Yeah, and we have all, pass them all same time. Do you know where they are, Ed? Pardon, the cards?
Right here.
Oh, here they are. Sorry.
Under the heading of reminisce, we would like to first kind of quickly go around the room and get everybody to identify themselves for the benefit of everybody else who may not know you or where you're from. Please give your name and where you're from. It would be interesting to know how far some people came to be at this reunion. So why don't we start this way, since there's Sandy over here, and just go around the table. Just give your name and where you're from.
Max Randall, this is my wife Pat. We're from Plainfield, Indiana. That's just outside of Minneapolis.
Okay, thank you, sir. Well, we have one short trip, now let's go.
I'm Reba Schmidt, U.S. Navy, but I have a couple of things to say in tribute to the bombers in a few minutes. This is my wife Judy. She was about 20 or 30, but she was 60 years old just 5 days ago.
You didn't know about that, did you?
I'm Ed McCabe. I come from Newport Richey, Florida. And let me also say to the mayor, your mother was right. I saw the children starving in Navy. I'm serious.
Thank you. My name is, too much chicken. My name is Adam Parsons, and I'm from Akron, Ohio.
I believe you have the record so far. Just
Alan McCoy from Auburn, Alabama. Carter Kaiser from Auburn, Alabama. He's with me, he was in the other army.
I'm Raymond Miller from Long Beach, California, with my wife of 55 years, Harriet.
From here to Connecticut before he goes back to Long Beach.
Right. And then they go to Florida to see an old fighter pilot friend of mine that's done too well.
Here's from Arkansas.
I'm Gil Crider, and this is my wife Hazel, and we're from Jonesboro, Arkansas, northeast Arkansas, and we will have been married 25 years, December the 5th this year. 55. I'll have to go home at 59 years. I was thinking about December the 25th.
Well, after 25 years, you decided to get married.
Yeah.
You'll looking at your wife, I could believe 25, but
Yeah.
looking at you. Let me Branch, Mississippi.
They're playing, by the way, 43 deep from here and from Macon, Georgia.
I'm Tom Hughes, and I'm from Copper Scope, Texas. I'm also Trust 43D.
Hey.
The oldest one in the bunch. 85 years old and still flying.
Being a native-born Texan myself, I appreciate you being here, and we'll have to
Well, I'm not native born Texas, but I've been there for about 8 or 9 years.
All right.
We won't hold that
Transplant. Okay.
My name is Ed Jenner, and I'm just one of the local yokels. I just came from over here across the Wabash River, about 20 miles.
Okay, thanks for being here. And you ladies, I believe the mayor introduced some of you, and
Ed didn't introduce his friend.
I'm Bill Kaiser of Northville, Illinois. My wife Betty, we've been married 59 years.
good.
Tail gunner.
Tail gun.
He ain't no pilot, he's a tail gunner.
He knew where we've been.
He talks a lot about yellow eyes.
Okay, anybody else at that table want?
You've got Ellie.
No, Ed's friend is Dorothy Hart. That's all right. I'll introduce Dorothy.
Okay.
She's one of our special people in Lawrenceville.
All right, Mike and Ellie, we'll let you get, Ellie, we'll let you get away with this for the time being. Okay, let's start at this, where are we at this point?
The mayor.
Yeah.
Frank. I'm Frank Buttermore originally from Ohio, but I've resided back in Lawrenceville for quite a few years.
What drew you back to,
Well, I got married to a girl here at one
say no more.
Frank was one of your instructors. I forgot to tell you that one.
I'll say yes, sir, to him. And what the next?
Joe Switek and my wife from Monaca, Pennsylvania. We were married 57 years ago next week at the chapel out of Airfield.
And you got a perfect attendance. Haven't you, Joe?
Joe.
Perfect attendance at every reunion.
Absolutely.
That's a record.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay.
I'm Buzz Posh from Hellertown, Pennsylvania. My husband has been out at the airfield, but he's been gone a number of years.
Tony Lasky from Bridgeport, Connecticut. My wife Melba here did the 55 years, married December 23rd.
Okay, no, this way.
I'm Si Stern. It's hard for me to get up. This is my first reunion, and I'm grateful that the gentleman to my left is also his first reunion. Very good time.
Good, good, thank you.
I told him I come from the nation of Cape Cod.
I taught Al.
You taught, you were,
I only have one thing to say. We lived the closest. We lived down 6th Street, by the hospital. So we didn't have far to come.
we plan to, just a few minutes, get a few stories, and I'd like for you to be thinking now about your favorite story. Golfs are optional. Landings are mandatory. Let's see. I don't know how best to start this story thing, but just follow the table. Let's go around this way again, because they're still working over here on the cars. We'll cross over there. Who at this table would like to start the ball rolling?
I first developed when I was at Okinawa. This is a mother or grandmother with a baby on her back. 2 blocks from there is downtown Sasebo. 6 blocks up the hill is a group of Japanese children, 3 in the picture. I saw them eat their first orange because I had it with me and I handed it to the oldest girl and she didn't know what to do with it. I took it back and peeled it and broke it into segments and gave it to the children. They still didn't know what to do with it. I took one of them and ate it, and you should have seen the expression on their face.
Good. It was worth it.
Then 6 blocks farther up, that same hill is a Catholic cathedral. Back there 2 blocks from the grandmother, the bombers had completely dismantled the railroad center. 12 blocks up the hill at this cathedral, there were only 4 damaged stained glass windows. Our bombers did a good job. And they didn't target civilian targets unless they absolutely had to when our enemies used the machine. Thank you, sir.
Actually, where I saw these children all, in the convent near Mother Teresa. My convent was in Dhaka, she was in Calcutta. So we used to have our garbage in 3 cans. The first one was a garbage can for cigarettes. The other one was food left over on the table. The third one was food we had left in the kitchen left over. And they took all that to the convent, and they used to whack that food up to the starving children and everything. But the only thing is, they used to steal it to people. And so one of the sergeants there, he said, we'll come down here with machine guns and we'll get them. And she said, oh my God, no. And his sister said, because if you do, we'll never live after. You're not going to be here all your lives. She said, we would have a chance. So we never touched it the next time. But actually, there are people, children. I've seen mothers carrying babies that were dead. They put a Calcutta off limits for us because we were given annas. An anna was 2 cents. They would feed their children for a long time with 2 cents. So they put it off limits because all the soldiers were giving rupees away, which was 30 cents. That's about it. Thank you.
Agree also B-26s, but I had quite a few interesting experiences, and I can't go into which one was the most exciting, if you want to call exciting, but there is one that I remember very, very vividly, is where I got my plane shot up quite bad, 500 miles or 400 miles from the front line. That's a story in itself. And when I got back to the base, then began the Inquisition, which is what I was doing there. That's all I have to say. If anyone wants details later, I'll give them to them.
I didn't do anything in the war. The thing, though, that always stands out with me is how I got away with things while I was here. Jimmy Dorsey and his band was in Evansville. I told the captain, I said, I'm going down to Evansville to the dance. He said, how you going to get back? I said, if the bus leaves there at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll be on it. So, of course, we got on there and had such a good time, I missed the bus. I called the captain. I said, Captain, this is Sergeant Kaiser, and I missed the bus. He said, Private Kaiser, how did you try to catch the bus? I said, yes, sir, I ran it for 5 miles before I gave up. And he said, come on in, but he didn't bust me.
Talking about the POW in Germany during World War II, I discovered on that first march out of the Stalag Luft 3 in Sagan, Poland, that you could barter, and the cigarettes were gold. And I knocked on a door with one of my buddies, and the door opened, and there was a table, and there was an American POW sitting there with a plate with the 2 prettiest sunny-side-up eggs that you have ever seen. And he had a cup of coffee, which was probably his own Nescafe from our Red Cross parcels. So I got to thinking, he's got the right idea. And from then on, I used my cigarettes and soap and sugar and chocolate to bribe my way across Germany. And it was always a pleasure to enlightenment to see what a little piece of chocolate would do to a kid's face that had never tasted it. And they were in love with it. And you wished you had a ton of it to pass around. And after we got home and I went back into Germany in 1947, there was still a demand for American foods up until January of 1948, whenever they had what they called the currency reform. And they got rid of all those occupation marks and got the Deutsche Mark. And at that time, it was 20 cents a piece, 5 for $1. Now it's about 2.5 for $1. And my houseman wouldn't have enough money to buy food if it was available. So when we go to the commissary, we always make sure that whenever we come home, we had a little bit more food than we could use. We give it to Willie, and he could take it to the family. And many Americans did that too. Almost all of us. And for a pound of coffee, which would be like gold, you could get a couple, 3 dozen eggs right off the farm. You could pick the chicken up and take them. And that was my story.
With him during the field every day because he was far better provider than I was. Okay, fan out front to keep the pilot cool. Now, if you don't believe that, turn that fan off and watch that pilot
What has been going on. I flew a new B-24 from Airfield to Joey Italy, and they picked us up in a truck and going to take us to a base at Lexington, where I was assigned to the 98th Bomb Group 345th Squadron. And of course, me being the pilot and the highest ranking of my crew, that I could sit up front in the truck. But when we were on the convoy going back to base, I noticed that the little kids would all run out behind the truck. Somebody had thrown candy or a gun or something. And no wonder, they said that there were several people who would get killed anytime a boy went through. No doubt, I don't see how they kept running. But we had to stop at a intersection, and in this big truck, GI truck, and the driver was over here, and I was sitting in this seat, and I was on the side over here, and there was about a 5 or 6 year old boy with about a 3-year-old girl that just stepped off of the curb as the light or what have you turned for him to go. And they stepped off the curb and walked right in front of the truck. No way he could see him. And I hollered at him, "Hold it, stop, quick, just a minute." And he stopped. If it hadn't been for me looking at that, we would have had 2 dead children right there. And as they walked out on the other side, he threw them a couple pieces of double bubble gum. And boy, they grabbed it up and took off across the street. But it's amazing what does happen and what goes on.
So, from that standpoint, we were taken by train in prison cars from the interrogation center in Frankfurt to Saigon, to Stalag 3. We got off the train, and I've never seen a meaner looking German guard in all my life. Short, squatty, I mean mean looking. And he stood there on the platform, the loading platform, and he looked around at us and he says, "Jesus Christ, fellas, where you guys from?" It's the truth. It is the absolute truth. He had been raised and he had grown up in Brooklyn. He had German relatives.
No wonder he was mean.
Sorry?
No wonder he was mean.
But he'd gone to Germany and had been impressed into the German soldier, to the German troops. And so he was as American as you can find. This was on about the 7th or 8th of June, and he's the one who told us about D-Day. We didn't even know it. But he just wrapped around him like a long lost cousin, believe it, but he was mean looking.
Up there. So I flew 38 missions over Germany, and this little incident happened along about my 16th mission, which was the day before Christmas, 1944. And we were flying over a solid undercast. Couldn't see the ground at all. And all of a sudden, flak started coming up through. So we got out of there in a hurry. Well, what had happened, we'd strayed over the bulge, the Battle of the Bulge. And the Germans had a bunch of 88mm flak guns mounted on flak cars and with radar. and our intelligence people knew nothing about it. We had no briefing on it at all. So we went on to our target, which was Kaiserslautern, and still solid undercast. And the group ahead of us must have some sort of an ammunition train, because we could see the debris coming up through the clouds. Some of those ammunition trains, they just carried an awful powerful lot of explosives, and that was one of them.
I've gone to Spremberg, and at Spremberg they put us on railroad cars. But whenever we were 53 of us, and a German guard were separated from 53 in the guard, that we're going to be in a 48-8 car, 53 of us in a car. Well, we were always in the 53 job. A German lieutenant or captain come walking by in the most beautiful leather blue overcoat for the Luftwaffe you've ever seen. I've been about killed for that one. Anyway, he kept into front of us. He'd say, anybody from Hartford, Connecticut here? And nobody would answer. And he went to the next group, and some kid said yes. He said, I have made 17 crossings and lived in Hartford for years. And they got to talking. He lived upstairs over a drugstore that had a nice little kitchenette and soda bar. And he knew the druggist. The kid was the son of the druggist. And they were yakking back and forth for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then slowly, for sure, one of the wags said, well, if you liked America so damn much, how come you went back to Germany? And the kid, the German, turned around and he says, son, have you ever been to a racetrack and bet on the wrong horse and you walked away?
But one little interesting thing that did happen, about the time the war wound up, they had this repatriation program going on, when they repatriated people from where they came from back to where they're supposed to be. Well, I was put in charge of a DP train, and we went from Germany through Austria into Hungary. And, well, this is a little silly aside, that I thought about the personal side of some of these guys. We had 1,200 German prisoners. And I found a warehouse that had a room full of toilet paper. And I requisitioned enough of that everybody in my group, all those prisoners had toilet paper. Anyway, we went down to Hungary, and whether all these people wanted to go back to this particular little town about 1,000, 1,500 people, I don't know. But we picked up that whole town, just like that, put them on the train to bring them back to Germany. Now they had a rule, now some of you know that a kilometer, I mean not a kilometer, but a kilogram is about 2.2 pounds. So they had this rule that they couldn't have but 100 pounds or 100 kilograms or about 200 pounds. That way nobody could bring any iron stuff, their cook stoves or anything like that. So anyway, we got them on there, but this one place had a pretty good cook stove in it. So we requisitioned that and put it in the train, in the car where we soldiers were. We had a group up in the front of the train and a group at the back of the train. And also somebody had made a mistake when they issued our rations, and instead of all being C rations, we got several cases of this good old GI colored condensed milk. Well, we had old people, we had middle-aged people, and we had children, and lots of women. So we fellas weren't being too crazy about the condensed milk, and we gave that to the women and children, and I will say that they ate better probably than any other DP train that ever come out of Hungary. And when they came back to Linz, Austria, it was a place where that they had everybody pile out, and they had to be deloused, you know. Everybody had lice, so they thought they did. And they're doing that. They had these they had these powder guns that shot out the powder, you know, with the louse powder in it. And we were there for about a day, and we had one elderly lady that passed away, and I don't know who took care of the body and all that. But before I wind up, I want to say that I was within 50 miles of Vienna, Austria, for 3 days with the train broke down. I never got to go to Vienna. And I've begrudged that ever since.
Beautiful place. Yeah, I went there, and that was a one-way trip.
Well, I got shot down in 1943, May. We were going to raid the Kiel to get the submarine pans. This is only my 8th mission and the last one. And we got into a lot of flak, got a little bit of that, and then we got hit by fighters. And looked up in the front, and the pilot was giving us orders to bail out, to get out. And it was understandable our control people were all shot out in the waist. And later on they said, well, they didn't know what we were doing, all congregated back here by the door. I could tell them we don't argue who in the hell's going out first. And I was one of them who didn't want to go out first. So finally when I seen the pilot going out, I made up my mind I was ready to go. And my wife gets quite a kick out of it when I floated down my chute, but had quite a ground wind that day, and I was floating backwards. And I could look over my shoulder, and I thought I was going to hit the metal roof on a barn right about the middle of my back. Instead of that, my legs flew up, my knees hit me under the chin, and I hit telephone wires right back to my knees. She just spilled my chute and dumped me in the manure pile. That's what she gets.
That's a lot of people. And actually, we stayed over there in Shanghai, and with Nick Gonzo, I don't know whether you people know it, he made them wait until Stillwell come up, and he made the Japanese surrender to Stillwell. Can you imagine that? It's good.
Good.
Skinny. Flight of World War II airplanes across commemorating Stillwell, and the Post Office Department issued the first day covers on the 24th of August.
Anybody know where Stillwell was?
You better.
Not, because I'll probably tear up. But it was, would you like to hear a wife's story of this? Okay, we had only been married 1 year when my husband was drafted, had 6 weeks basic training, went to Germany and was an infantryman, first scout rifleman, and went into the Battle of the Bulge and was wounded. And I received a telegram saying that he had been wounded and that they would let me know more later. Well, for 6 weeks I did not hear another word, and so you know how difficult that was.
Yeah.
And then, after about 2 more months, I got a letter from him saying that he was in France managing a PX. So it was a very welcome letter, and I have every letter that he wrote to me while he was in service.
Great, wonderful. End of the airplane moving forward as much as possible.
All you remember when you got your wings and you got your, or you thought you were pretty much done. And then we wanted to do work, even though you're thinking about that. So I flew up from Georgia here, and a friend of mine got me a date with a girl in town. And you know, cotton yard. So we went out that night, and well, we just thought we were something. And she says to me, she says, you know, you're just a day of me, it means nothing at all to me. Boy, after that, my old bars got blasted and the wings turned up, and she shot a hole in my ego just went to pot. So next day we flew back to Turner Field, and 3 weeks later, then they shipped me up here, and more instructors up here. So I came up here, and I thought, well, I'm going to see this girl and see if she's still talking to me. So I went to Charlie's. I don't really remember that now, but got in there and I found her, and I said, do you remember me? And she said, well, I never
never sunk it before in my life. I'm not doing well here at all. But I asked everybody to go out with her, and so she said, she'd go out with her. Well, 3 months later, I'm married. One thing I'm not sure about, who won?
Spring of 43, and then time for furlough, so I went home for 15 days and came back. I couldn't come back to the air base because of the flood. The pictures here show the flood. So we stayed in town. The military kept us in town, the armory, and stood there for about a week and 10 days or so. And they asked for one morning, all the fellows who got GI license to step forward a certain line, which I had a GI license, and this is all right. We would take a army truck and we're going back to the airfield. They took us almost to by convoy, almost to St. Louis, before we could get highways and streets cleared for flooding and all to get back to George Field. And then I come back and saw the sandbags and soldiers and whatever working on the flood area, and it was quite a disastrous area. And then I heard that later that I was not here in 1950. They had another one quite similar to that first one, but it was quite an experience. And she served me. She saw me come in the door, and she served me cherry milkshake. She knew what I wanted, and I got it. And that's 50 years this December 23rd.
They had the donut machine over on the side. We had a great big Great Dane that would come in, and he would go, and he knew exactly to go from the door clear over to that machine. He'd stand there and he'd just pick the donuts out of the tray as they came out of the donut machine.
When it takes full power just to tax it. Anybody at this table now, who wants to start here?
Say it again, Joe.
That's the shortest complete story I ever heard.
Dorothy, don't you have something to say? She's speechless.
I think one of the things that astounded me more than anything else is I never saw so many bicycles in my life. And I was driving a 6x down Calcutta about quitting time one night, and I don't know where they all came from. And I thought, boy, I'm going to run into somebody. But you know, I made it all the way down through there, and I never hit a bicycle. And I don't know why, because there were thousands of them.
You were trying.
Oh, I wasn't trying. I was just trying to stay on the road. The thing about India, I talked to the 8th grade high school, or saw them before Christmas, and told them about flying the hump. And half of them didn't even know we had anybody in India. They didn't know they knew there was World War II, but they didn't know that the Americans had anybody in India, and they didn't know what we were doing over in India. And I said, well, we were flying supplies into China so that the B-29s could get gasoline to bomb Japan. So that's basically our mission in India, was flying supplies into China to support the B-29s. It was an experience. The Himalayan mountains went up higher than we could fly, so we flew through the mountains. And there was a lot of airplanes that didn't make it over the Himalayas. We had what we called the Silver Trail. Airplanes that cracked up. You could follow them all the way from India into China. It was that bad. Flying conditions were abominable. We had thunderstorms and fog and rain and monsoons, and we had a couple of guys come over from Europe, and they flew with us, and they said, boy, we'll take the flak anytime over flying the Himalayas. So that's an experience I'll never forget.
the schools. And so many people came from all over the world to America because this was the most wonderful country of all. And I was fortunate enough to have a couple that came, one from Japan, one from China. And the gentleman, Mr. Lee, had been reduced from being the conductor of the Shanghai Symphony to teaching any kind of a music job he could get. And he was a marvelous teacher, but he fractured the English language like you wouldn't believe. And he had this lesson with all the children, and when he finished, it was a very poor lesson. And he said, "You children stink." And the children were horrified. They looked at him, and they didn't quite know what to make. The teacher came to me the next day and said, "Jim, you've got to talk to him and straighten him out. That's the wrong thing to say." So we were good friends, and I straightened him out. I thought I did. The next time he came around for the music lessons, and I saw her the next day, and I said, "How'd it go?" She said, "I don't know what you told him, but when he finished, he said to the children, 'You no stink today.'" Talk about growing up and how hard it was. Ken went into the sub-service, and I went into the Air Corps. And when we were growing up, he was younger than I was. And we used to like to go down to the town playfield. And Ken said to me, "We have to learn the language that these boys," this is a true story, the language that these older boys use. And I said, "Well, I don't know about that." He said, "Yeah, let's listen and see if we could find one that we could use." So we both listened. And when we were walking home, Ken says to me, what are you going to say?" "Oh," I said, I'll try to learn, oh, what the hell." I heard a lot of the boys say that. And I said, "What did you pick up?" "Well," he said, "I heard all the boys saying, 'Oh, you bet your ass.'" Oh. So we went home and we were practicing. Next morning, my mother was very stern. She had at the breakfast table, and she turned to me and said, "What will you have, cornflakes or oatmeal?" And I said, "Oh, what the hell, I'll have cornflakes." I got knocked right out of the chair. And then she turned to my poor little brother. He said, he had tears in his eyes, and she said, "What are you going to have?" And he said, "Well, you bet your ass it isn't going to be cornflakes."
Here, as many of us are, I have a great many mixed emotions. That's why I asked to be permitted to speak last. This is my first reunion. I hope it isn't the last. And I envy so many of you folks because you have your partners with you. I haven't, and there are a few of us who haven't, such as my friend here. But I want you to know how much I respect all of you. I was part of the permanent operations group. I knew nothing about it. I knew there was a class going on. Everybody was being taught to either fly an airplane or a glider, and we didn't mix. So I've never met any of you folks before. But I want you to know how proud I am to have met you at this convention. I hope we'll see each other again, because one of the things that's very sure is that you are unabashed patriots like I am. And I hope we all remain. And I was very impressed with the mayor's speech, because I have grown children, as most of you have, and grandkids. And I'm not too happy with the current generation either. Thank you for permitting me to know you.
You ready?
Yes.
Good. I was a POW, graduated here in 1944A, but the story I'm going to tell has nothing to do with all these missions and this and that and everything else, but it has to do with after I got back to the United States. To make sure that my parents and I had all of the ribbons that I was supposed to get, I went down to the War Departments in Washington, D.C., since I was only 40 miles away in Frederick, Maryland. And I was after I
got everything straightened up, I started to walk up the street, and this officer walked by me, and I didn't pay too much attention to it, especially since when I hadn't seen anybody in these big uniforms. And all of a sudden, I heard this voice say, "Lieutenant, come here." I stopped immediately and went to him. He was a 2-star general. He says, "Don't you believe in saluting general officers?" And I thought for a second or two, and I said, "Sir, where I've been, we didn't salute anybody." And he says, "Where have you been?" I said, "I was a POW." After explaining this whole story to him, he said, "I thank you very much for enlightening me." And he saluted me, and I saluted him in return and walked away.
One final lesson. Try the best. Keep your number of landings equal to your number of returns. There's a lot of evidence here tonight to the fact that that is a good practice. Several things were said tonight, starting with the mayor, about the importance of our generation, and I'm not sure that it was the time, I think, as well as the generation and the circumstances. But it was an important time, even today. And as somebody pointed out here just the other day, it's pretty common knowledge now that we are leaving this good earth at the rate of 1,000 a day.
That's going to take a long time to get rid of 16 million of it.
Yeah. Well, there's a great deal of it already.
We don't want to accelerate it.
No. Gotta fight it all the way.
Okay.
But there's something that I'd like to suggest to you that I think is very important in this respect. And that is when you go back home to your communities, if you know somebody in your school system, that's fine. If you don't, introduce yourself. And if you have friends who share some of these experiences with you, get them to agree to this plan with you. Go to the principal or direct to your American history teacher in your high school and volunteer your time. Talk to these kids. That's all I have. We have one more, there are some things that are left that we're going to hold a little bit later. If any of you have to leave, these are sort of optional things. There will be some picture taking, and there will be a movie, and I think a drawing, possibly out there, something. But right now, we'd like to ask Merton Wheeler if he would give a benediction.
Thank you for the opportunity to reminisce. Pray that you'll guide and direct each and every one of us to our several homes and bring us back at every opportunity in Son's name.
I said, we landed in Atlanta. We're going into the airport, and we're going into Atlanta in the car, and it broke down. And this guy said, well, let's introduce ourselves and tell what we are. The person says, my name is Brown, Lieutenant Colonel retired, married, 2 sons, one of them's a physicist, the other one's a bank president. The other guy said, my name is Campbell, Lieutenant Colonel retired, married, 2 sons, one of them's the principal of his high school, the other one's a banker. The other guy stood up and says, my name is Jones, Master Sergeant retired, not married, 2 sons, they both Lieutenant Colonel.
So this is right after World War II. And my wife said, is it all planned? Where are you going on a honeymoon? Well, she said, yes, well, we're going to Europe for our honeymoon. Her husband served in Europe. Because he said after we're married, he said he was going to show me that he was wounded in the war.
Listen, that's beautiful.
I think it's beautiful.
Oh, I got 2 tickets, you ready? holding them up so we can't see.
Drop the men first, and then I can move them up.
We're gonna draw for the men first, and then the ladies are gonna get the table decorations.
Well, I'll put all of them in on the table decoration with me.
Whatever. What you want me to do?
That's the men's first. I can't do it.
Draw one out.
Drum my own.
We don't care, it's legal. Then you get one for the bear. Can you read it?
Are you kidding?
No.
Yeah.
Is it your own? Oh, good!
That was big.
I didn't rig that. Who's that? Jeff Kennedy. Hey, it is rigged.
It is rigged. Well, at least you didn't pick herself. Oh, I get the bear?
That's a me. Isn't that funny? They drew their own.
I couldn't believe when I opened it.
There's all the fellas.
Okay. Ray and Silver.
Do you want to pitch with his camera too?
Halfway down and all the way down.
Yeah.